I'm going to need you to smash that little fucking plus. If you're on desktop on Rumble, smash that plus, the Rumble plus. It's a like button by any other name. Smash that fucking like button. If you're on mobile, I need you to hit that the little gorilla glove thumbs up or whatever on there. I'm taking over Rumble. It's mine. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it straight to the damn top. And I need y'all's help to do it. My channel is under attack. Whatever motivational speech you need, do it. We need all of that. Hit that fucking button because it directly impacts the video's exposure and performance. That's one thing Rumble does in a really cool way, is to kick that up the chain based directly on those pluses. So I'm asking you with my dick in hand, please click that button. It's free, except for your dignity. But other than that, it's free. And if you do it, it will bring more people to this live stream and bring more shame to the planet. And one last thing, just a reminder as we get this Andrew Tate video pulled up. God, look, with a massive vagina right up front. I didn't know this kind of pornography could be shown on Rumble, but here we are in the land of freedom, where we could just get a giant fucking vagina right in the front, lips open and all. We're staring directly into the uterus here. But as we get this pulled up, let me say one thing. RekietaLaw.locals.com. If you're on Rumble, you can click the locals join button. If you're on Odysee, you got to type it in manually. And that's either of those are fine, even though it's hard to type one-handed. And I know that's how you're watching, but you can join on locals for free. But if you choose to become a locals supporter, there is an exclusive live stream chat for every live stream that I'm on, including ones that are not on my channel. You guys can hang out there, drop dank memes, and just generally have a good time saying all of the gamer words that you want and posting all of the racism that you need. But that's there, and I'm doing that on every show now. And it is the locals chat is the best chat, and I think it's absolutely swell. Okay, here we go. This is Piers Morgan and Andrew Tate. He kind of looks like a lemur, like ready to stare at some. Or not a lemur, like those weird. Never mind, you know what I'm talking about. Those fucking things called.
Tonight on Piers Morgan Uncensored, one of the most infamous men in the world, Andrew Tate's misogynistic tirades have been viewed billions of times online. He's now been effectively...
Well, we're just going to open up with that 5 seconds in. Andrew Tate's misogynistic tirades have been viewed billions of times online. Okay. Just going... This seems judgy.
He banned, though, from the internet.
A meerkat.
He doesn't think that's fair.
That's what he
Tonight, I'm going to try and work out if it is.
You're going to work out if it's fair or not? It's not fair. There's not a question here.
From London.
There's no question. Andrew Tate being removed from the internet is unfair. I've got this turned up a little high. Because I had it up for the court, which is not balanced well. But Piers Morgan, whatever it is at least a professionally produced show, which has decent audio.
This is Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Well, good evening from London and welcome to a special edition of
Uncensored.
Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Uncensored from fucking London and on what, like a news network? Very uncensored. What a bunch of bullshit. Fire PA 498 says, "Hey Nick, can I get a toast? My beautiful wife Teresa Ann and I are celebrating our 3rd wedding anniversary this week. We're also celebrating our first son Peter's birthday, first birthday shortly after. We are so grateful for the many blessings God has given us over the past year. Excited for the future to come." To Fire PA, his beautiful wife Teresa, may they enjoy their first 3 years of marriage. And I think it's safe to say that on the 3rd marriage is when you get out the paddle and the ball gag, and you make that night a night to remember and regret. Cheers to you guys. May you have many, many more adventures and explorations. May you enjoy thoroughly the growing of your young child and the hilarious antics that they will get into and bring into your life. Cheers to you guys.
Andrew Tate one-on-one. He's the most famous man you probably never heard of, with billions of views online. At one point this year, more people were searching Google
Sweet
for
Ferrari
Andrew Tate than Donald Trump or Kim Kardashian. A former professional kickboxer, he was kicked off Big Brother in 2016 after a video emerged of him striking a woman in what they now both claim was a consensual sex game.
Hey!
He's since made millions as a pornographer and casino owner in Romania. But it's his online...
To the person who is they're just having that wedding anniversary, Fire PA, just a thought. Andrew Tate got big by beating a woman with her consent. I mean, maybe you could do the same thing. It's just a sex game. And like, people may think I'm joking about that, but hey, if you want to get a little feisty in the bedroom, as long as it's consensual, man, you little slap happy, little slippery slaps, go for it. Go for it. Worked for him. He's now hated by everyone, I guess. For the record, I don't know anything about Andrew Tate. And I don't I don't have any malice or anything against him. I just think it's like, the way they are framing this interview is fantastic.
Videos that have made him notorious across the world, posing as a playboy with fast cars, cigars, weapons, and cash.
Well,
he rants about his often scandalous views on women.
Or instruct a female to provide sustenance. Cook.
So I think my sister is her husband's property, yes.
Tells young men they can get as rich as him by paying for his digital life lessons.
I can just say derogatory shit about women and I can get Lamborghinis? Oh my, ladies, prepare yourselves. Andrew, I'm ready to come in and fill the fucking void. Whoa.
I have 100 business tips I'm going to teach you, which will allow you to make your own money instantly.
But amid global media backlash, the net has closed on Andrew Tate. While millions still share his videos, he's effectively banned from the web, booted off Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. To his fans, he's a misunderstood satirist and the victim of...
He is here on Rumble, by the way.
To many others, he's a malicious misogynist. Tonight, I'll try and get to the truth. Some of the opinions Andrew Tate shares in his videos are undeniably deeply offensive. We're going to show you some of them on this show.
No, they're not undeniably deeply offensive. Everything is deniably
what he
offensive.
says about them or what other people say about them. Tens of millions of people across the world follow Andrew Tate, and with a big following comes a big responsibility, as well as a public interest in holding his views to account.
Now let's get this right the fuck out the gate. Piers Morgan, there is no responsibility in a big following. I've seen this before, and people have talked about it like, oh, well, yeah, you know, you got a lot of people listening. You're really responsible. You are not responsible at all. Because once you assume the mantle of responsibility, you then are saying that your words are now the cause of someone else's actions. And the only action that your words need to be responsible for is sending, super chat, Rumble rants or whatever to me. That's everybody's words should be responsible for, not mine. I'm saying everybody else. But you are not responsible for what other people do just because you talk. Now, certainly you can improperly wield your voice. You can use your voice for bad. That is a real thing that does exist, but it requires the intention to do so. Merely going online and stating your opinion, saying, I believe that women should be subject to their husbands or whatever. Like, if that's an opinion that Andrew Tate holds, that's fine. And if other people agree with that, that's not something you're responsible for. That's just something you believe and someone agrees with. We need to be very fucking careful because this is the road to censorship. Piers Morgan Uncensored. The idea that you have a responsibility, or more appropriately stated, a duty to someone else merely by having more people listen to you than the next person means they can regulate your speech because of an arbitrary number of listeners, views, whatever. No, no, no. That can never, ever be an acceptable position. Because once you have that position, you've conceded the regulation from the get-go, and we should not be doing that. Let me change this from the Alex Jones closing. Oh, I'm going to edit the title. I don't know if I can edit the title on Odyssey, but on Rumble, I'm editing the title to Piers Morgan, and Andrew Tate. And we should just not concede that you owe something to other people by merit of being listened to, by merit of having your ideas become popular. You don't suddenly assume more of a mantle of responsibility. And the sooner we realize that, and that might make people uncomfortable, but the sooner we realize that your responsibility exists in the exact same amount, irrespective of the amount of engagement that you get, the sooner we start to understand what baseline freedom looks like, baseline liberty. I mean, just imagine, because it's so easy to say, well, with great power comes great responsibility, or whatever. With a great audience comes great responsibility. It's very easy to say this flippant, offhanded statement. The much more challenging thing to say, is that your ideas, you're responsible always for your ideas, whatever those are, and your thoughts. That's the limit of your responsibility. Voicing your thoughts and ideas is freedom, is liberty. Not voicing them by any other means is tyranny. It is oppression of your right. Okay? But think of the lunatic cycle where we say someone voices their ideas, and those ideas are that's neutral. That is just a thing that happens, and it's perfectly fine. However, once 10,000 people listen, now it's not fine. The exact same idea, the exact same speech, you have now become responsible to own that, or in some way, and therefore have a shackle placed upon you. Maybe it's not 10,000, maybe it's 100,000, maybe it's 1 million, maybe it's 100 million. Whatever it is, you are not more or less responsible for your own ideas and thoughts just because they might happen to become popular and or controversial. If that were the case, we would be able to shackle anyone's thoughts and speech merely by drawing attention to them. And that would be a different type of tyranny, the tyranny of the mob. That cannot be the answer. It never can. And Spider-Man has fucked us all up with this. Maphanger says there once was a queen named Morgan who was fond of tugging his organ, such a slimy maggot and a massive faggot, his mother should have had an abortion. Whoa. Wow. You know, Maphanger, a lot of people heard that, and now you have a responsibility not to say such mean things.
If outrageous opinions are read aloud, they can be challenged and exposed for what they are. If they're silenced, the person holding these views can become a martyr. So that's why I invited Andrew
that's
Tate
correct.
to come
there
in
you
tonight,
go.
and he joins me now live. So Andrew, well, welcome, first of all. You come all the way from Romania to do this interview.
Correct.
What do you hope to achieve from this interview? Why are you here?
It'd be interesting to have a conversation with you. You've certainly been the subject of your own divided opinions in the world. There's a lot of people who would say some of the things you say are perhaps dangerous or toxic. So I thought you'd be a good person to speak to about this subject.
I didn't know much about you.
Is Piers Morgan ever a good person to speak to?
I became very aware of you, as the world did, because, as I said earlier, you were the #1 subject searched on Google ahead of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was even possible. Yeah. Why did you get suddenly so popular / infamous, do you think?
I exploded. I certainly didn't do that with magic. I've been on the internet for a very long time.
Magic the Gathering is what
I think in the world we live in now, as the other side, the people who disagree with me, as they get more and more tyrannical in their censorships and their hate mobs, etc., as standard masculine practices are deemed toxic. I didn't put a magic spell on everybody. I managed to accumulate a large amount of affinity with the male populace across the Western world, because I'm simply saying things that many men believe, think, and feel.
The problem I would say is, I want to play you just a clip off the top. This is from Joe Rogan. He's somebody I absolutely love.
Sure.
And I think it explains to me
When you say
what
you love
my-
Joe Rogan,
what
do
I
you mean in a
presume my
gay
issue
way?
with you is going to be, right?
Correct.
And you
All right, let's-
you have absolutely got the right to try and persuade me otherwise.
Sure.
But Joe Rogan said this about you.
My 12-year-old and my 14-year-old asked me about Andrew Tate.
And
My
what'd you say?
14-year-old
What'd you
asked
say?
me, I said he's a legit world champion kickboxer. I go, I like him a lot. Why do you like him? And I was asking him. And they said he says a lot of funny stuff on Twitter and TikTok. He f***ed up with the misogynist stuff.
Yes.
Because if he didn't do that, if he just did the pro-male stuff.
So I thought that was interesting because when
Wait,
I-
you kind of cut him off right there at the end of the, did he say to, notice he censored also, he beeped him out, and Piers Morgan censored out the fucking word, but did he say knock it off with the misogynist stuff? Is that what Joe said?
gone over everything that's been at the center of the debate about Andrew Tate. I come down with Joe Rogan in the sense that there's a lot of stuff you say I agree with. You know, I've got 3 sons in their 20s. It's not easy actually being a young male in the modern world. And I think a lot of the things that you say about that can resonate with them. Yeah. The problem comes with the, I don't know, 10, 20% or whatever of your output, which on the face of it appears to be blatant misogyny. And when you couple that with your massive influence and huge reach, that is why the social media companies have decided to effectively cancel you. I don't believe in cancellation. I don't believe in censorship particularly. That's why I've invited you to come on the show. But I do think a lot of the things you've said are blatant misogyny. Do you accept that?
So you made a very interesting point there. You just said on the face of it appear to be blatantly misogynistic. I understand that on the face of some of the long format content I've made, if you're going to take a few seconds out of hours, chop it up, put it all over social media, accompanied with my massive fame, then things can absolutely not be taken out of context. I do not hate women in any regard. I have no negative relationship with women. No women have come forward saying I've hurt them. I have no criminal record for hurting women. There's no...
Okay. Let me be... There are some accusations. There are some accusations. I'm not saying there's anything to them. I guess I don't technically know if any women have made those accusations or if they're made by, I guess, men on behalf of some women. But there are some accusations out there about some stuff. So, I mean, there's a little bit. And again, I'm not saying there's anything of merit or value to them. I think most of them have been debunked. But I think there was something on there.
No way I can be seen as the face or the devil in regards to how men treat women on the planet. I'm absolutely and utterly the opposite. I believe in protecting and providing. I've been misunderstood.
Protecting and providing, very misogynistic.
Contingents of people who have tried very hard to purport lies about me. And the truth of the matter is, I've been producing content for a very long time. Hours and hours of videos been cut down to 2 or 3 seconds of clip. Those clips have gone viral and people misunderstand me.
But I think you've used this phrase and be taken out of context. And I'm not sure that is correct in the sense that it still comes
so it wasn't made by a woman, I'm hearing.
Completely.
I'm
some
just
of the
saying.
things you've said, I just think are blatantly.
Well, let's do them. Let's go
through some,
sure.
Right? So you said this about Me Too / rape. This is probably 40% of the reason I moved to Romania. In Eastern Europe, none of this garbage flies. You go to the police and say he raped me back in 1988. They'll say, well, you should have done something about it back then.
Yeah, so the point I was making was obviously the height of the Me
right.
Too scandal. And also, if we look at Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, there's been a lot of high-profile cases where men have been accused of things they did not do without evidence, and their lives have been completely and utterly destroyed.
Right.
When I say these things, people sit and say that, oh, he hates women. I don't hate women. I think rape is disgusting. I would take a stronger stance on rape than the British government. I think these people should face the death penalty. But to sit and say that women without evidence can go forward and just make up accusations against men, even though they've been repeatedly proven to destroy men's lives at will, is absolutely not.
What about a woman who was raped back in 1988 and goes to the police?
Then the man should face absolute and complete justice.
But you understand that when that clip appears on TikTok as a clip, and all right,
as a clip, completely
okay, but it's still something that came out of your mouth.
But I mean, here's the problem: if a woman, most places have a statute of limitation because it's really fucking difficult to make a rape case 30 years, 40 years later. It's impossible. It's impossible because what you end up having is just a he said, she said oftentimes there's no DNA. There was no report. There's no witness to it. Like rapes don't just happen out in the open most of the time. Yet here we are using these ancient reports of rape. And look, it sucks. It really does suck. It's really unfortunate if someone commit any crime to you, and particularly the heinous crime like rape, 30 years ago. But my God, like there are limitations to the legal system. And if you didn't deal with it in somewhat of a reasonable time, how are we supposed to trust the allegation? And it should be, I guess, investigated in the same way that any other 30-year-old case is investigated. What it should not be is a hammer smashing into an anvil of a social movement and crushing somebody in between without evidence or process. And that's what Tate's really talking about here. That if you go to Romania and you try and pull the Me Too bullshit, then they're just going to say, fuck off. What do you want us to do? Is 30 years ago. Anybody who even knew you guys were alive is dead. Like, how many people do you know outside of your direct family members from 34 years ago, 88 to 2022? How many people do you know from that time frame? I mean, if I go back to 88, I'm living in Houston, Texas. I'd move away 3 years later. And I can think of my friend Scotty, who I kind of know, but I haven't seen him since my wedding 18 years ago. And like, he doesn't know me. I don't know him. I know very little bits about him. But this is one of the only people outside of my immediate family members that I could say from 34 years ago, like I could name as someone I've seen since then. I mean, shit. I've got, I guess, a couple of my parents' friends who would have known me as like a little tiny child are still alive. Go back 20 years ago. How many of those people do you see? How many people like this do you see on a monthly basis, an annual basis? Sometimes you run into these people at like a class reunion or something, and that's about fucking it. It's crazy that we put credence into these allegations that you without serious amounts of evidence being put behind them.
Alf, do you accept that when that appears on TikTok, a lot of young, maybe not as smart as you, young men, right? Impressionable, teenagers, will read that and go, what's he saying here? Is he saying that rape doesn't exist?
No,
What?
completely. I'm not going to sit here.
What an insane proposition to say that we're not going to take a 30-year-old rape accusation and treat it as gospel to equating that to rape doesn't exist. Oh my God. And yes, I know what is allegedly going on Joe's channel. I see you guys talking about it, and that's fine. But if don't ask me to address it, because I'm not gonna.
As a professional and say that I can't be taken out of context. What I will say is that one small sentence you've taken was from a 1-hour video where I explained that, of course, rape is disgusting. Of course, everybody should be punished for their crimes regardless of when they happen. But people are not perfect, male and female. And if you give women the opportunity to destroy men's lives without evidence, there's going to be a contingent of women who will do that. I'm trying to make a balanced and nuanced argument in a world where people have no attention span. They're going to take a few seconds, put it online, decide someone's good or bad, not be interested in the longer format video. And here I am. No, I'm certainly a person who takes personal responsibility. That's who I am as a person. But we live in a world now with TikTok videos 5 or 6 seconds long. There's no content.
Do you think women are the property of men?
No. The point I was making.
Why have you said they are?
Because I made a religious point. I said that
because they are. That's right. Get owned, bitches. Get owned. You know what? Like, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it since he's not going to, and I know why he's not going to. But some women want to be owned. They want to be owned by their man, by the man that they choose. It's a consensual ownership. It's not a slavery. It's a submission. And they like that. They're into it. They like the idea that in exchange for submission, for respect, for care, for comfort, that they will be protected, provided for, respected in return. People assume that ownership implies a negative relationship. Wrong. Forced ownership implies a negative relationship. But submission is, and I don't mean like BDSM submission, although you know what? Lots of those people are into that, and they make that a part of their lifestyle and they enjoy it, and that's fine. But it's the force of submission that has always been the problem. If someone willingly submits, and he's about to make the biblical point, I'm guessing, of women submit to your husbands, but that they always leave out the literal same line, husbands love your wives. It's an idea of an exchange. I will commit myself to you. You can lead our life and relationship. I am yours, not to do with as you please, but to respect and honor. And in doing so, I am yours. I'm not someone else's. I'm not up for grabs. I'm not up for auction. I'm not on the block. I am yours. And that is a relationship that many people find to be very, very healthy and fulfilling, but they focus on these words like ownership, and they imply a connotation that doesn't exist. I don't know if that's what Tate's talking about, but I'm guessing it's what it is. And it's so fucking disingenuous. But I would wager there are many, many women in the chat who either have found someone to quote unquote own them, or who would really, really like to.
When a man marries a woman, the woman's father walks her down the aisle, and hands her away to the man. Traditionally, this is what it says in the Bible. I'm a religious person. I believe in God. I live in the most religious country in the world.
So you do think that the woman becomes the man?
I think she takes his last name.
I mean, let's watch the clip that you said about this so that we can get it in context.
So I think my sister is her husband's property, yes. When a bride is walking down the aisle,
see, I'm with Nick Fuentes.
The father walks next to her and gives her away. True or false?
Absolutely.
But I've been married twice, as it turns out, and on both occasions, I didn't believe that the woman was being handed to me as chattel, as property.
Perhaps the way.
Maybe that's why you're married twice now, Piers.
The reason I'm asked that question repeatedly, and I'm asked in a loaded way.
So would you rephrase what you said there?
Now, that's an interesting point about phrasing. The way I would say things before I was famous, I have to take personal responsibility and accept that if I make a video that 500 people see and 1% of them misunderstand it, that's not a problem. If I make a video that 5 million people see and 1% of them understand.
So specifically on that point, I think my sister is her husband's property.
She took his last name. She married him. She wanted to join his family. She has said it herself.
Right. So she's
still a sovereign individual. She's absolutely not a sovereign individual.
Property means that the husband owns your sister.
Listen, my friend, if you want to argue about this, you need to go back to the Bible, to the Quran. You need to argue with religious.
No, I'm not talking about anything in the Bible or Quran.
But that's what it says.
No, I'm asking you what you think.
I think that if a woman marries a man and she decides to take his last name, that they have different roles and responsibilities within that marriage, and I believe that.
That's not the question.
I believe the father. The father hands her.
Don't behave like a politician.
The father hands her to the man.
Right, but don't be a politician, because I think you're a straight talker, right? You keep telling me you're a straight talker. I think my sister is her husband's property. Do you regret saying it like that?
I understand that with my newfound fame, perhaps it could be phrased differently. However, I still believe that a woman is given to the man in marriage. That's what I believe.
Yeah, but not as property.
No, the property is the word that other people use when they ask me the question.
But as an equal partner in a loving union, that's what marriage actually means. It doesn't mean when
property can be an equal partner in a loving union. Again, the voluntary nature of the relationship destroys the baggage of the word property entirely. Entirely.
When you get married, the woman is given to you as a bit of chattel.
Agreed.
So why say it?
But that's the way that people ask me the question. People say to me, they ask the
question.
Hang on.
You can't blame people for asking you questions. Surely if you want to be accountable for what
Sure.
you've said, you've got to own your responses, not blame the question.
I own the response.
It'd be like me asking you a question now, and you say something, and then say, "Well, actually, I blame you for asking."
I understand, Piers. Piers, I understand. I believe the woman is given to the man. I believe she's given away by the father. I believe she belongs to the man.
So
if she belongs to the man.
Fundamentally, all right. So fundamentally, you do believe that a woman becomes a man's property. At
I
marriage.
believe she belongs to the man in marriage. Correct.
Just say
Right.
it. You're already
Oh, you see,
canceled.
that's
You're
a-
already fucking canceled. Just say it. Just say, yes, I believe she's property. But I don't believe in the negative connotation you're associating with that word. Just say that. Just do it. She's given herself as the man's property willingly to him. And he is giving himself as her protector, as the responsible party for the property, as the person who is designed to preserve, protect, honor, grow, and foster the property. In the same way, not the same way, probably. No, yeah, in the same way that a damn farmer needs to get out and plow his property, a man needs to go and plow his wife, right? Like, you need to nurture and foster the thing. Find a farmer who doesn't love and respect his land, and you will find a farmer that is unsuccessful. And I'm tired of pretending that this type of relationship can't be something useful and valuable when it has been for thousands of years. Just because we don't like the connotation of the word property anymore.
To me, is misogyny.
And you're entitled to your opinion.
Right. But do you not understand
You're
why
not
people think it
entitled
is
to any
misogyny?
opinion.
I
actually.
understand why some people can be very offended by
There's
what
no
I say.
entitlement necessary
What
to
they
have an
do is they
opinion.
take a point like that and they ignore all the other points I make the other way
Yeah,
around.
but that's why I've repeatedly asked you about that line to see if you've changed your position. But the reality is you haven't.
It's not about changing positions. I'm a full-grown adult and I stick by the things I say and I'm responsible for them.
Which, by the way, is fine.
Absolutely.
But
So,
what you did say at the start of this little exchange, you said, you know, I wouldn't maybe say things the same way now that I did before I was famous. And yet, actually, you've doubled down and said exactly the same thing.
on certain points,
So that is what you believe. And that's my point.
yes,
I'm trying to work out, look, I don't know you. We've
Correct.
just met, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to work out who Andrew Tate is and what you actually believe.
I
I don't want to twist anything at all.
Then let me make
You
it very, very
did.
clear to the camera. I believe a woman is given to the man in marriage. I believe that. I also believe a man has a duty to protect and provide for her. I believe a man should lay down his life if something happens or his wife's life is threatened. I believe that women and children first are on the lifeboats.
But men,
I believe that men.
but a man doesn't own a woman.
It's not. No. It's
Unless
okay.
they literally buy them as a slave.
Well, obviously, we're not talking about that. We're talking
That's
about religious,
not the same thing.
biblical marriage. We're talking about something else.
Yeah, but I'm a Christian. I don't believe that I own my wife.
Do you believe your wife was given away to you when she took your last name?
I believe that there is a process where a
Did your wife
father
take your last name,
traditionally
Piers?
walks his daughter down the aisle and hands his daughter to this man, and they stand there and become a union of two loving
So we
people
agree.
in a partnership. No, there's no ownership involved.
I didn't say
He's not selling her. The father of the bride isn't selling his daughter.
no, absolutely.
That's
But
what property
she
means. It's
she
not-
becomes a
it's not
member
like
of your
house,
family.
is it?
I think we're arguing over semantics.
We're
That's
not,
what
though,
we're
because fundamentally, I don't believe a man owns a woman. You do.
Well, I don't think a man owns any sovereign individual. I don't think we live in the world of slavery. I don't own any men or any woman.
Right.
Nobody owns
But when you
anybody.
use phrases like property, that's what you imply.
I understand.
And so my point again is, you're a smart guy, right? There's
Correct.
no
Wait. We're not arguing semantics. Okay, I believe that a man owns one. Well, they don't own it like slavery. Wait a minute. That's arguing. You're arguing semantics, Piers. Do you not realize that you just said we're not arguing semantics, but then you just argued semantics very specifically? Fucking dumb. God, Piers Morgan is such a fucking idiot. He always has been an idiot. And just
denying that. You're
Yeah.
smart. You're a good talker. I've seen a lot of the stuff. But what I don't think you quite fully understand
No, I
is
understand
that
very well.
when
Piers.
young, impressionable people
I understand
who
that
are
very
not
well.
as smart see things like, I think my sister is her husband's property, yes, and you've just reaffirmed that,
Yeah.
that belief, they think that they have the right to own women.
I understand that very well, Piers. Which
That's
is
why people think you're a misogynist.
completely. I understand all of this very well, which is why when you're saying I was backtracking, I'm not. I'm
Do you have
saying,
any regret, though, over the way you phrase this stuff?
well, this is the point I was trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is when I was not nearly as famous and I was making long format content, I was not sitting there anticipating I'd become the most Googled man on the planet and that a few seconds could be taken out of context. That was not my anticipation.
No, but it's
I
still
didn't
what
plan.
you believe. It's what you believe now. So what's the difference?
It's not about, you're asking me, you're saying that young people who are
If
impressed.
you said to me, look, Piers, honestly, I've had time to think about this and I wish I hadn't said it, I don't believe that. That's one thing. Actually, you've said the opposite. You said, actually, that's what I think. Yeah.
I think that when
it doesn't really matter whether you recorded it when you're famous or not famous. It's what you actually believe, right?
I believe that a man has a duty to protect and provide for a woman. I believe that a woman's father gives her away to the man. That's what I believe, and that's in my marriage. That's the circumstance I'm going to live under. If people want to live in a different scenario, that's completely theirs. Their prerogative.
You went on to say about authority over women. If I have a responsibility over, I must have a degree of authority.
Yeah.
For the same reason, if I have responsibility over and people are going to use their mind, it's an example, an analogy. Responsibility over a child, I have to have some authority.
Yeah.
So you believe as part of your ownership or your property of the woman, you have authority over her.
No, I believe if you have
that's what you said.
I believe if you have responsibility over something, you have to have a degree of authority or you can't be responsible.
Yeah, but authority means, again, that you're the boss.
The point I'm making.
Not quite. Here I am. I'm fucking defending Andrew Tate. I don't even know if Andrew Tate like believes deeply in any of this stuff. I don't know. But the idea that you are responsible for something, therefore you have some degree of authority over it. Yes, that's true. In the same way that a woman who is responsible for her husband, because she has some degree of authority over him, even though, yes, she is owned or whatever. But let's not pretend that this doesn't go two ways. And there's all sorts of ways to exercise that authority that are just fine. It doesn't mean that they have an unquestioning subservience to you. That's not what submission is. That's not what property is. That's not what any of this stuff means. And it drives me fucking nuts.
If you'll please let me finish
Sure.
at this point. The point I was trying to make was talking about the safety of a woman. She was walking alone at night. And I was saying, well, I wouldn't let my woman walk alone at night. And they said, well, you're not in charge of her. You don't get to decide what she does. I said, I understand. But if I'm responsible for her safety and I'm the person who's burdened with making sure she is safe, I have to have the authority to say, don't put yourself in unsafe situations. The two things are linked.
Well, you don't have authority. You have you can absolutely have the right to say to the woman you're with, I don't think you should. But ultimately,
If she decides, then I can't force her.
Right. So authority implies that you have the ability to control someone.
No,
authority believes, authority implies that I have the moral right to sit and say that that's an irresponsible thing to do, and I'm responsible for
That's not what authority means.
Well,
Yes,
I'm not going to. If you think I'm going to lock somebody up in their room, is that what you're implying?
No, I don't think you know what authority means.
I know
I
what it
think
means.
you don't
I'm
know
saying
what
that if
authority
It's a
means.
different description of what authority
If
means.
I have responsibility for her safety, then I have to have the authority to tell her not to do unsafe.
Yeah, but authority means that you have some form of control over this woman.
No.
I think you're.
No, it just means that your speech to them has a higher influence than someone else's speech to them. Your boss doesn't have control over you. Your boss can make suggestions. They have authority over you. And if you do not listen to those suggestions, there is some form of consequence. The authority that husbands and wives have over each other are a series of consequences that go from the range of being angry and having to deal with someone who's pissed off at you all the way to fucking divorce. That is the authority that you have. You can punish them for their actions in any number of ways, in any range of punishments. That means you have authority. If your next door neighbor says to you, hey, don't go out at night alone, who cares what they say? But your husband says, hey, don't go out tonight alone. And you go, yeah, well, fuck you. And you go out. Guess what? Even if there's no like greater consequence, but you come home and he's pissy, you didn't listen to him. Oh, now that's negatively impacted you. You suddenly have authority. That's authority. That's literally it. And it goes from that all the way to much more severe consequences. But authority does not mean absolute control. And these people are so fucking dumb. I can't take it. Arno09, Nick, I truly hope you get popular enough to go on mainstream and get to yell at Piers Morgan in person. They'll never air it, but it'll be so satisfying. We'll see. We'll see.
What you're trying to
I'm
do.
only trying to get to what you think. Honestly, I am. I come with no agenda here at all.
I understand. And I'm explaining very, very clearly. If I have responsibility over said subject, I have to have authority over it. So let me say you have children, right?
Right.
Oh, and by the way, women have a massive authority chip over their husbands. Massive. Do you know what it is? It's the V, baby. It's the fucking V. Women are the gatekeepers of sex. Drex has said it a million times. It's true more often than it's untrue by a large fucking margin. Tell you what, you want a sign of authority over the husband. It's pretty simple. If they make a suggestion and you don't follow it sufficiently enough to piss them off, you're not getting ass, man. It is not going to happen. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Sex is a massive, massive poker chip in the female repertoire. And this isn't like a mystery or surprise. It's so common that it's a fucking meme on every romantic comedy, sitcom, everything ever written takes into consideration the amount of authority women have over both their husbands and literally any other man that they want with the V card. I mean, that's just the way it goes. And to pretend otherwise is just silly. Does it mean that she has absolute control over him? No, he can say no. But he'll suffer the consequences. And that consequence might be a stonewalling from sexual activity.
You have responsibility for them.
No, I have legal authority over my children. That is very different to having legal authority over my wife or my...
Now you're talking about degrees of authority, not kind. You have a degree of authority over your children that is greater than over your wife. But guess what, Piers? If your children don't do what you say, what, did you not have authority because you couldn't exercise control? Of course you still had authority.
Female partner.
Completely, but the point I'm trying to make...
So you accept that?
I accept that
you used the analogy of responsibility for a child.
My friend, these are very...
These are actually really important things.
They're important things, but you interrupt me every 5 seconds, so it's hard for me to actually explain my point. The point I'm making here is very simple. You have children and you're responsible for their safety. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have authority to say, don't go out at night, perhaps because you want them to be safe.
I have legal authority.
You have a legal authority. Yeah. Legal authority. I'm saying that if I had a woman and the question...
You don't. What legal authority do you have over your child, Piers? This is actually an incorrect assertion because Tate brilliantly walked him into a fucking trap, I guess. But what legal recourse do you have for your child disobeying you to say don't go out at night? No, you can't sue the kid. Well, you throw him in jail. I told you not to go out at night. You don't have legal authority over them. Well, you can go retrieve them. I mean, I guess you could go retrieve them, but that's less that you have legal authority over them and more the fact that they don't have legal autonomy over themselves. There's a very big difference here.
Where you've raised this soundbite from, I was asked about protecting a woman, making sure she's safe. And I would say I wouldn't want her to go out at night on her own because I'm responsible for her safety. And someone said, well, you don't have authority over her to do that. And I said, well, no, I can't force her to stay inside. But if she were to ask me, how do I protect myself at night? I would say, well, you should stay inside. That's how you should do it.
I don't have an issue with what
so
you
we agree.
Said. No.
It's the semantics.
No, it's not semantics.
It is semantic.
I don't think you quite get why there's a furore over what you say, with respect. Because the semantics point would be if we're saying the same thing in different ways, but we're not. I'm saying to you that when you say I have to have some authority over a woman, I say to you, you have no right to any authority over a woman. You do over a child if it's your child, because you are the legal appointed guardian of that child.
Understood.
You're not a legally appointed guardian or authority over your wife or female partner.
Legally appointed, absolutely not. I agree. However, when it comes to things like personal responsibility or personal safety, men, largely by society, are accepted. We're the protectors and providers. We can sit here and pretend that in the world we live in, if me and my wife were walking down the street and men were to come up and try and attack us, I wouldn't be the one fighting. But we both know in reality I would.
Right.
I have a degree of responsibility to protect her. So if I have a degree of responsibility to protect her physically, then the point I'm trying to make is I will do my best to make sure she's never putting herself in unsafe situations.
You wish you hadn't used the word authority.
The authority is something that she would give to me. She would come to me and say, how can I make sure I'm as safe as possible?
But I don't want to interrupt you. I just want to point out that's not what authority means.
If someone gives, a person can give
voluntary authority is not authority.
No, but that's the point.
It's not. Wait, no, what? What are you talking about? Almost all authority is derived voluntarily. Almost all of it in the world. Your relationships are established by contract. Your choice to live under a government or to remain under a government is technically voluntary. You could, in theory, choose just about any other government. Now, there are authoritarian regimes who might prevent you from leaving, but by and large, the overwhelming majority of the earth at this point is free to go anywhere else once they follow and submit to the legal authority that they're going to. But that is a voluntary transaction. That's voluntary. What? God, I don't know if I can watch this whole thing. It's too
Piers,
retarded.
Andrew, stop.
Piers, if a woman comes to me and says, I want you to keep me safe, she is handing me authority for her safety.
But do you understand the difference between having authority over somebody and somebody giving you permission to have authority?
Completely. I never said
One is consensual and one isn't.
But why
Wait,
are we pretending I do unconsensual things? when I
Because
have
you
no criminal
literally
record?
say, I must have a degree of authority. I have to have some authority. And the point
Only if
about
I'm responsible for her safety. If I'm not responsible for her
if your
safety, I don't have
position,
authority.
if your position now is that
Piers goes on to immediately admit that there's voluntary authority right after he says he doesn't. Right after he says that you don't have voluntary authority, it's not a real thing, except, well, what about voluntary? It's like, Jesus Christ. Holding two positions in your hand at the same time and both of them being retarded is Piers Morgan's specialty. Eric Specula says Morgan is mixing up authority with dictator. He really needs a few more lessons in English because he is too stupid. Well, I mean, it's just a dictator just has supreme authority. It's a matter of degree. Ugh. Okay.
with her permission, I would like to have authority when we go out at night to protect her. That's a different
That was
thing.
always my position.
But that's not what you said.
Yes,
that was
it
always my
is.
position.
So,
Piers.
so again, I simply say to you, do you?
It
do you
is
wi-
what I said, though.
Do you wish you'd phrased it a different?
When he says he must have authority, it's not that he needs to be granted the authority. It's the logical byproduct of having responsibility is having authority. Well, if I have this, then I must also have this. It's a simple logic question, but Piers won't get around it because Piers is stuck on the semantic argument of 2022 PC speech. I mean, that's what he's got. That's what's going on.
Different way.
No, because we're talking about long format copy where I'm talking about a woman who has come to me and said, you're responsible for making sure I'm safe. I said, well, then I have to make the decisions.
When an
which gives me
18-year-old
authority.
boy reads, I must have some authority over a woman, what do you think he thinks?
Well, I understand that. And I said this earlier when you tried to say I was backtracking, which I'm not doing. I
No,
understand.
actually, I'm not. I don't want to.
Okay.
I'm not trying to gotcha you.
Cool.
I'm trying to work out exactly what you
I
actually
understand with massive fame comes massive responsibility. I understand that a percentage of the population are always going to take everything that's said by anybody out of context.
think. Would you change the wording of what you said?
No, I would just encourage people to watch my long format copy and understand it
Would you
fully.
tell an 18-year-old boy you don't have authority over women?
Absolutely.
You would say that?
Unless a woman comes to him and says, you're responsible for my safety, please make sure keep me safe. Like
I
my
see.
woman
Now
says,
that
comes to
Andrew
me.
Tate, I can sign up to.
Well, then we agree.
Yeah, but I don't agree with what you said before.
Because you're taking a soundbite from a 2-hour
yeah, but you haven't been
conversation.
taken out of context because I read you the entire sentence. It's very.
But you've
difficult.
ignored all the context around the sentence, my friend.
You can't ignore a sentence that says I must have a degree of authority.
But you can when there's a 2-hour conversation where a woman is telling me if she makes me responsible for her safety and me explaining, well, if I'm responsible for your safety, I have the authority to make decisions. So
Do
yes,
you
you've
think-
ignored all the context.
Do you respect women?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't I?
Do you think that 18, 19-year-old women are more attractive than 25-year-old women?
I think there's attractive people. That's a loaded question. I don't know.
Well, it's not really, is it?
I
You
can't
know
sit-
why I'm asking you.
Of course I do. But I can't sit
Well,
here and
for
say,
the benefit of viewers who don't know why I'm asking, you said this. In general, this is also one of the reasons men find youth attractive. You want to blow up the internet? I'll blow up the internet right effing now. The reason
Okay.
18 and 19-year-olds are more attractive than 25-year-olds is because they've been through less dick. People say, oh, you can't say that, but yes, I can. A 19-year-old is more attractive than a 26-year-old woman, and I'll tell you why. Because that 26-year-old has talked to more guys, been to the club more times, been effed and dumped more times, more arguments, more mess, more for me to clean up. That is misogyny.
why?
That is not misogyny. That is just a very unfortunate reality of the culture that we live in right now that people have been building since the 60s. That's just the answer. And that some men value that differently than other men is not misogyny. It's just a fucking fact. Oh my God.
Because you are encouraging a mindset about 25-year-old women that makes them sound out to be infinitely less desirable than 18, 19-year-olds, and having effectively been...
So here's a... Piers knows this, and this is the most fucking frustrating part of this. Piers knows the name of the game when talking about a subject in a provocative realm like the internet. You speak in generalities for the purpose of generating conversation around the fringes. Not that I'm here to, like, I'm siding with Andrew Tate on all this stuff because this is an obvious, like, this is a hit piece of Piers Morgan against Andrew Tate. That's becoming pretty fucking obvious, but let's just do this. Let's just do this way. On average, the likelihood that a 25-year-old has been through more baggage-inducing relationships than an 18 or 19-year-old is true. Let me disagree with Andrew Tate. I do not find 18 and 19-year-olds more sociably attractive, because that's what he's talking about. He's not even talking about physical looks here. He's talking about the attractive nature of a relationship, of a social encounter, not just purely physical or sexual. I do not find an 18 or 19-year-old more attractive than a 25-year-old by default or anything else. In fact, 18 and 19-year-olds are some of the hardest people on earth for me to talk to, men or women, because I don't fucking understand the stage of life that they're in anymore. I'm long past understanding what that is. And I have been for a really long time. I'm more likely to gel with a 25-year-old who is perhaps married for 1 to 3 years at this point, something like that. Maybe has a kid. Maybe he's had a job, has graduated college. Like, that's actually, for me, it's kind of the opposite of what Andrew Tate is saying. But it's not because I'm measuring the amount of penis that has gone through them. It's because the different life experiences that are interesting to me are prevalent. And I find 18 and 19-year-olds to be really, really difficult to relate to. And it's not super easy for me to relate to a 25-year-old either, but it's easier because they've been through more life than the 18 and 19-year-old. If I was a single guy with Ferraris and Lamborghinis in my McMansion, being a playboy like Andrew Tate, I might actually be able to relate to the 18 and 19-year-old more than the 25-year-old. Because the attachments that I have are different than what he has. We might have different tastes, and that's okay. That's a fine thing. But the reason you make the provocative statement is to have those conversations around the edges. That's what makes online conversation and communication interesting and worthwhile, is what's going on in the outside. Lonely God 64 says, how many miles of Bingercock do you think Morgan has run through in his lifetime? I guess more than 100. Whew. Woo. Woo. But yeah, I get, like, look, and I get the idea of like the super young or whatever, like, thing. Like, a lot of guys are really attracted to 18, 19, 20-year-old girls. Women, I shouldn't call them girls, I guess. 18, 19, 20-year-old women. physically attracted to them. They have a particular look about them, and then women's bodies mature and change. And you know what? Those tastes are going to vary depending on who you are. I mean, that's just is. There have been times in my life where I was much more attracted to 18, 19, and 20-year-old women than I am now. Like that's true. I don't know. Like none of this is controversial so far, unless you make it controversial by having a fucking hissy fit over it.
Having too much sex to be taken in a more respectful way.
That would, well, firstly, even if that was the case, that wouldn't be misogyny.
Well, what did you mean by what you said?
That's not misogyny because it's not anti-women. I'm saying that an 18 or a 19-year-old woman would be more desirable.
Pretty anti-25-year-old woman.
Anti-25-year-old women we can argue, but not misogyny.
Well, that's misogyny.
No, it's not.
Being anti any woman at all is misogyny.
Not when I'm saying that women are beautiful and attractive at a certain age and saying the age.
You're saying 18, 19-year-olds are more attractive than 25.
Well, then ageist perhaps, but misogynistic absolutely.
Is that
not.
But you just accepted it was misogyny.
No, I didn't. You said it was misogyny. I'm telling you, no, it's not.
So you don't think if you're saying slightly hateful things about a 25-year-old.
That's not slightly hateful.
It's not hateful.
Well, it is. You think you say that to a woman's face if she's 25?
It's not slightly hateful. When
So you would go up to a 25-year-old woman and tell her exactly what I just read out.
Why would I walk up to a random 25-year-old
Because you said
woman
it in public
and
on
say
the
that?
internet, and it's been listened to and watched by millions and millions of young,
Correct.
impressionable boys.
Correct. There was a large panel. There was a conversation. There was hours long of conversation. There were feminists attacking men for toxic masculinity and attacking me and saying things. And I said things back which were going to antagonize
But I think,
them. Which you've done yourself a bunch of times.
I think a lot of allegations of toxic masculinity are not toxic.
Correct.
I do think that kind of sentence that I just read out, that paragraph, is actually toxic. If you genuinely mean that, and you say you wouldn't say it to a woman's face, but you said it in public about women of that age, I do think that's misogynist. And I think you probably do too.
I don't think it's misogynistic. I understand why it can be insulting.
So you wouldn't say it to a woman's face?
Well, it depends. You're making out like I'm walking around the street going up to random 25.
Well, effectively, you're doing it to tens of millions of people online.
It's completely different. You would say all sorts of things that are generalizations that you would not walk up to someone and say, hey, by the way, I don't know if I can do this. I hate the fucking dishonesty. I hate the fucking dishonesty. Can't we just have... Why can't we just have a moment of fucking honesty in our discussions? Why can't we do that? Why can't we give anybody the benefit of the doubt anymore? We just can't. Speaking of the benefit of the doubt, got something very important to discuss right now. That's right, birchgold.com. All right, back to this shit, I guess, for a little bit.
Difference.
Not at all. We're discussing a topic. We were discussing the ideal age of a man.
Should young boys, right, in their teens, are you comfortable that they would have that mindset? Be honest.
I think that young boys...
A young boy in their teens should probably be more attracted to the 18 or 19-year-old girl than the 25-year-old girl. Like, if we're just going to go by proximity in age, then yeah, that makes more sense. What the hell are we talking about? Like, there are ways to make Piers's argument, and this is definitely not it. Well, do you want young boys who are 14 and 15 to be more attracted to 18-year-olds than 25-year-olds? 18. I want them to be more attracted to the 18-year-old than the 25-year-old. That's what I want them to do.
In their teens lack life experience. They lack nuance. And they need to be very, very careful what they're digesting online, whether it's my content or anybody else's.
Yeah, I think you know for a fact millions of them are digesting exactly what you're saying.
So
completely. The entire internet, to a degree, I think any subject you can find, there's going to be a whole heap of
I come
content.
back to the Joe Rogan thing, Andrew. Is that a lot of what you say, I agree with.
Yeah.
Right? I do, genuinely. I've read a lot of stuff you said. A lot of the stuff you talk about, I think, yeah, he's got a good point, right? So we agree about a lot of things. But when I read that kind of thing, I'm like, how much of that is you? How much of that is some act? Do you regret saying stuff like this?
I don't.
And actually, do you see it as weakness to admit you shouldn't have said something like that?
No, I don't live with regret. I think what's happened is that, like I said, long format content, arguments with feminists, arguments with the toxic masculine crowd, arguments with the left, and they're going to take a small clip, small sentence from ours, and they're going to try and paint me as a
But
villain.
I'm not left or right.
I don't know what you are.
Exactly. That's my point. No, but that's my point.
And I understand. And you're doing exactly as I knew would happen on this interview, which is because you're a busy man. You're not going to watch hours and hours and hours of video.
Actually, I have watched hours and hours of video, and I'm going to come to the stuff where I agree with you, and I'm going to come to the stuff about your censorship, which I have issues with. So this is, it's a long interview, right?
Sure.
I just thought off the top, you said to me, and you were quite bold about it. Well, go on, then let's go through these.
And you should keep.
Wait a minute. Am I in a war with Tug? What the hell is this? Like, where Tug and I are bros. I just spent all fucking day yesterday talking about like how Tug and I both, like, our channels are like 3,000 people or whatever, like 3,000 subscribers. We've been friends through the whole fucking time. Like, what is going on with the goddamn the weird like rumor thing? What is happening here? Sorry, I read something funny in chat. I just thought I would get to tune in during a spicy rant, and I didn't. So now I'm
Understand.
depressed.
And you're doing exactly as I knew would happen on this interview, which is because you're a busy man. You're not going to watch hours and hours and hours of video.
Actually, I have watched hours and hours of video, and I'm going to come to the stuff where I agree with you, and I'm going to come to the stuff about your censorship, which
Sure.
I have issues with. So this is, it's a long interview, right?
Sure.
I just thought off the top, you said to me, and you were quite bold about it. Well, go on, then let's go through these.
And you should keep going. I will sit here and stand by what I said. I believe that
on that, I've just read to you then.
Yeah.
Do you wish you hadn't said that?
I understand how it's been misconstrued. I understand how it's been weaponized against me. Do I regret it because it's been weaponized and used against me? Well, that's slightly annoying.
That's not why I want you to
Did I
regret
at the time mean what I said in the context of the conversation, which obviously you're not familiar with and the people at home are not familiar with? No, I meant what I said.
The 25-year-old women, they've just talked to more guys, been to the club more times, been effed and dumped more times, more arguments, more mess, more for me to clean up.
Well, there's a whole bunch of context and conversation around that's been missed, and I
don't
encourage
think I'm missing much context.
Well, I encourage people who are interested to go watch it.
Right, but I mean, I've just read out 3 sentences on the bounce there. I don't think there's any context I'm missing. I mean, you made it pretty clear what you think about the difference between 18 and 90-year-old women.
I wasn't talking about
26-year-olds.
myself, even. I was talking with a Muslim guy who was on the panel, and he was explaining how youth is very valued in most parts of the world, and why virginity is valued in most parts of the world. The feminists were arguing against it. And I was sitting there, actually, very much like you, a mediator between the two, explaining why in most of the world still today, perhaps not in the Western world, virginity is coveted, youth is coveted in most of the world, and throughout all of human history. And I was sitting there making the point, explaining why in certain parts of the world they think how they do,
well,
even though it's very different to the Western world. So I was making a point, mediating between two groups very similar to yourself. The conversation has been misunderstood. They've taken this clip of it and it's been weaponized and used against me. I understand that is because I'm now the most famous Google person on the planet. It's inconvenient, sure, but I'm definitely not a danger to women in any regard. I date women 25, 26, 27 years old all the time. None of them are offended by the things
I don't
I
think
say.
you're a danger to women.
Of
I
course
think
not.
I think the danger, if it concerns you, the danger is the influence you have on young men to have this
It's
kind
not
of mindset
a
about
danger.
women. And that's really where I'm trying to get to what you really believe and how much you've just...
What you really need to consider is why young men are willing to accept the words of a random former kickboxing retard. Let me embiggen myself. This is the fucking point here. What we really need to figure out is why young men, young boys, whatever they are so apt to immediately latch onto this. What is going on in the world that the Andrew Tate ultra misogynistic worldview or whatever is so fucking appealing to them? What is it? Because that's the problem. That's the actual issue. It's that the margins are so pushed to the extremes right now, and we're trying to force everyone to this extreme over here, and then wondering why this extreme on the other side looks palatable to people. if you try and massively control thought and experience, if you try massively to control everybody and funnel them into one particular ideology or one particular perspective about something, and remembering that that perspective is that you as a boy or a male are inherently dangerous, inherently less valuable, and inherently disgusting and unworthy. That is the Western societal approach to young men. And we wonder why in God's name they would listen to someone who says, yeah, actually, you're not a piece of garbage just by having a dick. We're fucking curious about this? Still a question? Why? Why is this hard for people to understand? Why is it hard for, especially when we're talking about 14, 15-year-old boys, kids who are struggling with identity, who are told that by the nature of their gender that they are less valuable, which is kind of funny. Like it's ironic, I think, coming from the feminist side of the aisle here, that these boys are told that by nature of being male, that they are less valuable than someone else, that they don't, especially if you're white, I guess, that you don't deserve a job before a person of color, and preferably a BIPOC woman or whatever, right? Like that's who deserves your job. And you just have to wait because the other white males who came before you, they had it good. So you can't. I'm sorry that you don't get to have it good because somebody else did. You try and figure out the fucking mystery of why at that point these kids would latch on to a message like Tate. And for the record, Tate's message isn't really even that radical. It's just that we've so radicalized the normal position that something close to the middle looks insane.
Shot off because you think it's like entertaining and you haven't really given it much thought. And whether now you're a bit older and you've had all the fallout, whether part of you is thinking, actually, if I had, as Joe Rogan says, if you hadn't said stuff like this, you'd probably still be on all these platforms. You'd be massively more popular, massively more.
Would you be massively more popular? This is a misnomer. Without the offensive stuff, would Andrew Tate be massively more popular? I don't think so. Actually, I don't think so at all. And this is a thing that always happens. Well, if you had just moderated your speech, then you'd be more popular. No, actually, not at all. Like that's not how this works. If Eva asked me today, he's like, what, why did you say what you said to get your final strike? Well, one, I wasn't thinking about it. Could I have moderated my speech? Probably. But here's the reality. If I had checked myself and self-censored, I'd be a little bit less me, wouldn't I? It would have been a little bit inauthentic if I had caught myself and carefully couched my words and blah, blah, blah in a way that's acharacteristic. It would be acharacteristic. Then I'd be someone else. I'd be something less than what I am. And if Andrew Tate, I mean, for whatever he is, if he had just left out all of these uncomfortable things, he'd be something less than what Andrew Tate is. And I don't think he would be more popular. And if you're supposed to compromise your speech for the platforms, it's the platforms that are the problem then, not the speech.
Famous, massively richer. So I'm really just trying to get to, on the blatantly misogynist stuff, do you just wish you hadn't said it?
With great power comes great responsibility. It was certainly said before the great power came. It's inconvenient to a degree. However, like I said at the time, with the context of the conversation, I know that I'm not saying things which I believe to be detrimental to the world. However, they've been misconstrued and they've been misunderstood.
If a 25-year-old woman was watching this, would you say, I'm sorry for saying that?
No.
Well, I wouldn't want anyone to be offended by anything I say, but
Yeah,
I say things. But I say things that offend. And this is the thing that's interesting, Piers. Please let me finish.
Yeah, but you're behaving like a
Just say
politician.
no.
You can say I'm interrupting.
You do.
But you're answering a different question to the one I asked you. So as an interviewer, you're
Sure. Okay.
you're
Sure.
behaving.
Sure. Okay. Let's. Sure.
Okay, you accept that. Let's
No
accept
problem.
we
No
both
problem, no
got
problem.
on. Okay. So again, my point is simply, if a 26-year-old woman is watching this and has heard those comments,
Yeah.
would you just say to her, "Look, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that."
No, I won't. I will say that I am sorry that offends you. However, there's a large contingent of the world.
That doesn't
and-
mean you're sorry.
No, I'm not sorry. That's the point I'm making. I'm sorry if that offends you. However, there's a large contingent of the world that believe that, and I was mediating for a conversation.
Parts of the world that believe that about 26-year-old women are parts of the world where women are not allowed out on their own.
That's a
They
conversation.
have to wear full burqas.
Well, that's a
They're
conversation.
not
to have.
allowed to drive cars.
That's nothing to do with.
But is that the kind of world for a woman that you?
I was mediating.
applaud?
I was mediating a conversation.
No, I'm asking you what you think.
I don't live in a country where that happens.
You're using that as the excuse for why you're not sorry.
Wait, don't you live in England? Or does he live in Romania? Oh, shit. M. Kupari says, there's an endless parade of people willing to take advantage of lost young men, milk them to get rich or famous. OnlyFans girls, the Jack Murphy types, etc. Yes. Yes.
For saying it.
It's not an excuse.
Is that there are parts of the world where this is fine?
My
So
friend,
my question to you is, well, do you think it's fine?
I don't think it's fine. I live in a world where
You don't think it's fine?
the reason
This
I
isn't that hard, Andrew. You can simply say, Piers, you know what? With the benefit of hindsight, I wish I hadn't said it like that. And if a 26-year-old woman's watching, I'm sorry I said that, because that actually is blatantly misogynist. And even though that's a view held by other parts of the world, it's not a view I share. Now, I would respect you more if you said that than if you try and say, well, it's said in other parts of the world, so I'm not sorry.
I think you
That doesn't tell me what you think.
I think he should have. I don't think he. Big criticism of Andrew Tate here. He tried to do this quibbling equivocation where, well, in some parts of the world, this is how men and women interact. Blah, 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 blah. No, fuck it. Stop pretending you weren't talking about the Western world here. Because this is pretending. And there are all sorts of reasons to pretend or whatever. And I'm not sure what his reason to pretend here would be. Again, he's already canceled from everything. But he's talking about the West when he's talking about the 19-year-old and the 25-year-old. He's not talking about Iran. It's like, well, these Iranian women, these 25-year-old Iranian women have seen just miles and miles of cock run through them all the time, getting fucked at clubs every left and right. That's not what he's talking about at all. He's talking about in the West. He's talking about general desirability in the United States, in Britain, in Germany, or whatever. Like, that's what he means. And it's annoying that he's not sticking with that. And I think it's a mistake. And Piers is kind of capitalizing on it here. Andrew Tate is talking about westernized women, not Eastern women, not women in oppressive regimes, not women in burqas. Like, women in burqas are not just getting fucking railed out like crazy by the time they're 25. Well, unless they were married at 6 or whatever offensive thing I can say. That's just not like, and I don't believe at all that that's what he was talking about.
Then you need to understand why my content existed in the first place. My content existed because I tried my very hardest to be an absolute and utter realist, especially with uncomfortable truths. I was pointing out that very uncomfortable.
Is that a truth? Then?
It's an uncomfortable truth in many parts of the world. It's not a truth that I'm happy about. It's not a truth I created.
Hang on. You're digging it again. What do you mean that's a truth in other parts of the world? That's what you said. You're not talking about another part of the world. You're talking about what you believe is the difference between 18 and 90-year-olds and 26-year-olds.
I was talking about
your belief.
I was talking about what the people on the panel believe the difference is.
So what do you think the difference is?
I think the difference is age.
What's the difference then?
Well, then a 26-year-old's older than a 19-year-old.
And so you stand by what you said about talking to the guys, being to the club more times, being effed and done more times. Well, you believe that or not?
No, there's plenty of 26-year-old women who have been with one man or virgins,
right.
Of course.
So you don't believe that?
I don't think that the age is the only thing that's going to decipher how many men and women.
Right, so if you don't actually believe what...
Jesus Christ. Okay, we make selection. Selection happens very, very fast. Within seconds. Selection happens within seconds and then takes years sometimes to undo. And we select on a set of factors. Physical attractiveness. I'm very, very sorry. I'm sure there's a nice, super fun and awesome bunch of frumpy, ugly people out there. I guarantee you there are. I know some of them. And it's fantastic. But on the list of things that people value, especially right away on selection criteria, attractiveness is really high. It's really, really fucking unfair, I guess. It's really unfair. But if you're a sexy guy or a smoking hot chick, guess what? More people are coming up to you in the bar than Lizzo or whatever. Actually, that's not true. That's not true. But only because Lizzo is Lizzo. Lizzo has a bunch of other factors that for some reason people value. She gets past that initial selection criteria through having millions of dollars, being super boisterous, being really fucking outgoing or whatever, and irritating, in my opinion, but some people might find that to be funny, and being famous. That, you just trumped the whole attractiveness thing really quickly for a lot of people. Not for me, but for a lot of people. But if Lizzo wasn't Lizzo, if it was just someone who looked like Lizzo walking around, they're going to immediately be discarded over someone else who's more attractive. The same goes in a lot of ways with age. And like I said, if someone is attracted to that 18 to 19-year-old look, a 25-year-old woman who's a little bit more mature, might have a little bit broader hips, especially if she's had a kid, maybe 2 kids by the time she's 25. Fuck, 3 kids by 25 is not unreasonable. They look different. And if you're selecting based on a young appearance at the outset, and you're making inferences about what that means at the outset, you're just filtering, just like on Tinder when you swipe left. You go, yeah. You swipe, newsflash, on Tinder, you've probably swiped left on someone you really have a great relationship with. It's probably happened. But you're selecting based on an initial set of criteria. That criteria doesn't explain the person, but it does add a quick hit of value. And that's what these conversations just can't get nuanced enough, I'm guessing.
What you said, just say sorry.
It's not about not believing what I'm saying. It's about you understanding that there's large conversations going on.
I'm just reading back stuff you've said.
I know
and
you
I'm
are.
asking you, do you believe it?
I believe that it's more likely a 26-year-old's had more partners than a 19-year-old.
Right. You don't know that.
I don't know that. You're right.
He said it's more
In fact, there could
likely.
be absolutely no evidence for that whatsoever.
Completely agree.
So why say it? Why stigmatize all 26-year-old women?
It's not about, we're repeating ourselves here.
Well, not really. I'm just trying to get to what you actually believe.
I believe that men find youth attractive in general. I believe that in the context of the conversation,
25-year-old women aren't old.
I agree with you. They're not, especially I'm old. I'm a lot older than that.
Hmm.
The point I was making was part of mediating a conversation between feminists and some Muslim guys.
I get it.
Okay,
I get it.
good.
But
So you understand why I said the sentence.
But as far as I know, you weren't espousing what a Muslim man might think. You were espousing what you think.
I was espousing what the people on the panel believed.
But you were saying what you think.
I feel like you're trying to pin me down.
If it's not what you believe, just say, I don't believe that.
What part wouldn't I believe?
Well, you tell me which part you don't believe. There's the sentence. Which part would you now say you don't believe?
I believe that 25-year-old women perhaps have had, because they've been alive longer, maybe have had more partners, but I don't believe that makes them a bad person.
Right. But you understand that the way you phrased it makes every 25-year-old
I
woman
understand.
No, it
a bad
does
person.
not. God, it's not every, it's in general, the propensity, the likelihood. And my God, it is so much fucking more likely that a 25-year-old has had multiple partners has had more partners than an 18-year-old just by the nature of the passage of time. This isn't even controversial. This isn't strange or weird. It's, if it were the opposite, if we're to say, well, it's much more likely that an 18-year-old has had more partners than a 25-year-old, it's logically inconsistent and irreconcilable. It's fucking stupid to suggest anything different. And I don't get, this is...
No, I don't think so.
Of course you do. You're not stupid, Ad. Come on.
Piers.
Andrew, you're not stupid. You know what that sounds like to any 25, 26-year-old woman.
Completely. And
All
you're
right? So you have maligned
No.
every 25, 26-year-old woman
No.
with that statement. And I'm simply asking you, to all those who are not of the type of women that you've described it, are you sorry?
I don't want anybody to be offended by anything I say. I want to be a positive force in the world. I don't want anybody to hear what I say and make them feel bad about themselves. I want all people to live righteous and good, whether they're male or female.
Just say you're not sorry because it's fucking true. Just say it. Just Reeves says, oh my fucking God, say it with me. Struggle session. No, I've not, I've not seen Asmongold's video talking about how Piers destroyed Tate, nor did I watch Destiny's video about how Piers destroyed Tate. But I saw Destiny's title and I was like, huh, I wonder if that happened. I don't think Piers is destroying Tate in this. I think Tate is not doing himself too many favors, though.
And anybody
You lead a righteous life?
I mean, Piers is being completely disingenuous, but I wish Tate would just say, no, I'm not sorry because it's true. Like, just say it. He's right. Like, he's 100% right that a 25-year-old is more likely to have had multiple partners than an 18-year-old, and he values someone with less partners. That's an okay position. And he thinks that men largely value people with less partners. I think that when he talks about men, I'm going to assume he's talking about men who are looking for specifically someone to have a bunch of children with, or some children, a family with children. I think that's what he's going for. I think that's the man he's talking about. And by the way, not all men are looking for a relationship with a woman who's going to give them a bunch of children or even any children. And there are probably a shitload of men out there who would rather select for a bunch of other factors, specifically like hotness over youth. And some men are attracted to women who are a little bit more mature looking than an 18-year-old. Some of them are looking for experience. Like, some of them would specifically select for experience. I think someone who maybe has been with a partner for a really long time and something happens to that partner, either divorce or maybe like a divorce or an unfortunate death or something like that. They're looking for a new partner. They may not want someone who is 18 or 19 years old. So Ty, my friend Ty, he deals with business owners quite a bit. We're talking about multimillionaire business owners, guys who built like a steel mill out of nothing, and now they're going to sell their business for $70 million or whatever. Okay. And a lot of these guys will get divorced at 55, 56 years old. And then they'll like get married to like a 22, 23-year-old because they'll pick them. Oh, she's super hot or whatever. And guess what? Those marriages don't last. They don't last very long. So some guys would actually select for maybe a woman with more experience. Maybe it was with one partner. Maybe she's a divorcee or a widow or something like that. Or maybe not, because maybe they're just interested in someone who will be faithful to them, but also be wicked in the sack. And they don't want to go through the experience of, like, I guess, fucking training them up. And there's a lot of women who would say the same about guys. Like, they would want a guy who's a little more experienced rather than some young 15-year-old or whatever. Well, hopefully, maybe some 18-year-old who hasn't been with a lot of women and who would be like a chore to fucking train. I knew a chick like that in college. She's like, I do not want some young guy who's never been with a woman ever, because she wanted a guy who could rock her fucking world. Like, there's all sorts of selection criteria when we get down into specifics. But he's talking very generally about a very specific type of man. I wish he'd just own it, because it's right. Like, he's just right on this.
I think I do, yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
You boasted openly of having 6, 7 partners at once. So is that righteous? I'm not taking there's no moral view from me. Simply asking you what you think righteous means.
I think righteous is living true to your heart and knowing that you're doing good by people, not snaking anybody, not lying to anybody. I know I live a very righteous life.
Have you ever been in love?
Yeah.
How many times?
Plenty. I believe in love between men and women.
I mean, real love, you know, where it's,
I believe.
how many times would you say?
enough.
Most
I
people
believe
in
men and
love
women
don't know they're
are
in
a
love.
beautiful union. I think we're slightly different, but when we work together, we're the most powerful force in the world.
How many women have you loved?
I don't know, Piers. A few.
Give me a ballpark. 5, 10, 20?
Let's say
You don't forget how many people you've been in love with.
let's say 10. I mean, I've been in love, and I certainly believe that men and women, when they work together, it's the most beautiful force on the planet. I believe in family. I believe in children. I believe in.
If you believe in family and children and love,
Yeah.
why are you single?
I'm not single.
Well, you're not married. That's what I mean.
Well, if I was married, the last thing I would do is advertise it to the feral psychopaths on the internet. So
I'm not a feral psychopath.
Well, like,
You
it
called
can
me
be-
friend earlier.
Can be debated.
Randall McCallum says, so Nick knew a hoe. No, I knew a chick who was in a really long-term relationship with one guy that she had a lot of sex with, and then they broke up. And then she didn't want to find another guy and rebuild like a bunch of that energy. She wanted to start a little further down the road. That's what she was looking for. I guess that could be a hoe, but it's literally like her second partner. That's what she was looking for. I don't know. I don't know how to judge her choices there. Aussie Mozzie in my chat here says, genuine question. Can you explain to me what men think a feminist is? No, but I can tell you what feminism is to me right now. As a woman, I don't think I'm awful. And it's starting to feel embarrassing to be a woman when so many men talk like they don't want women anymore. I think you're saying they don't women anymore. I don't think I even understand what a feminist truly is, as I just care about people and don't have some script I follow. I know I don't like women who don't treat their partners well. Okay, so what feminism used to be was a movement. It's like first and second wave feminism, I guess, are the technical terms. But it was a movement for equal rights for women to men at a time when rights were literally not equal. Like there was no right to vote or whatever. And some women wanted that and other women did not. And it's not like a universal thing that all women wanted the right to vote, because they believed that the right to vote would confer responsibility to do a whole bunch of shit that they didn't want to do. We're not getting into that discussion. We're going to make a broad blanket general statement that the early forms of feminism were women should be brought to legal equality or parity with men. That was early feminism. Then came later waves of feminism, third and fourth wave feminism, where suddenly they didn't want legal equality. They wanted something called equity. And we're seeing equity all over the place now. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And why is this important? Why is this distinction between equity and equality important? It's because equality simply says that people are blind to whatever condition you have. They treat you the same. Equity says we must specifically recognize a particular condition and elevate the owners of that condition above the other due to a perceived or even real deficiency that previously existed. So when we look at it this way, we say, okay, women haven't been in the mainstream workforce as long as men. By the fucking numbers, you're going to have more male executives than females, because once women enter the workforce, it's going to take time for them to fill the ranks and matriculate upwards into executive positions. It will necessarily take time. So equality would say that when a job application comes in, or a boost for a promotion comes in between two candidates, one man, one woman, they would not look at the gender of the two candidates. They would look at the experience qualifications of those two candidates, and they would choose the one that is more experienced, and they would promote them as more deserving. Maybe they have more seniority as well. That could come in, whatever it is. They would promote the person who is more qualified for the position. In a hypothetical ideal world, I know there's a million things that go into job selection, but in this wonderful computer simulation, you would ignore the genders, ignore the races or whatever, and you would just determine based on skill. Okay, this more skilled wins, they get the position. That's equality. Equity goes, whoa, we've got a man and a woman, and we have traditionally less women in these roles than we have men. What we're going to do is add a level of favor to the woman to compensate for the fact that we would want to see more women in this position due to the fact that women have been artificially suppressed over men or under men. And so therefore we're going to specifically look at the gender and determine that being a woman is of value over being a man. Now, theoretically, the man could have a sufficient list of qualifications to outdo that. But equity looks at it and gives more value to some innate characteristic. This is the quintessential idea of modern affirmative action, which has changed pretty dramatically from its inception too. But that being said, this is what third and fourth wave feminism are. It's to take the female trait and to assign a value to it that is superior to men. And I think the fourth wave feminism is to probably devalue the male trait to provide equity at a faster pace is the best way to describe it. So what is feminism? It really depends on what you mean. If feminism means simply equal rights, then call me a fucking feminist, I guess, because I think that everybody should have equal rights, but in equal opportunity. But if you want to have equal outcomes, which is what equity looks to do, is to equalize the back end. And I'm all about the back end, but not in this category. That is what feminism is right now. It's what racial activism is today as well. It's about equalizing the back end, which is to control the outcome of society rather than the beginning or the opportunities that are presented. And that is completely fucking incorrect in my opinion. And men, this is mostly the product of, I'll say, fourth wave feminism, but a little bit of third. Men are literally being devalued and they're feeling it. And so when you've got men who don't want to be with women, it's because they are being put into a lower class. Since they're being put into a lower class, they're rebelling against those lower classes. They're rebelling against that. And they're saying, fine, I'll just fuck right off then. I don't need you. I can get a doll or I can do whatever I want. This is what you hear Drexel talk about all the time. I don't necessarily agree that that's the right thing for men to do, but I certainly understand where a lot of men are coming from in this thing. They feel like, well, if society's not going to value me, then I'm not going to value society in any way. I'm not going to value or I shouldn't say value society, value the structure of society that these people are trying to build, because they're not going to build anything. They're going to destroy it. So that's that. I hope that's an explanation of what my perception of what's going on is. And I think I'm correct. Aussie Mozzie says, but we are biologically different and men have qualities that women don't have. Why can't women accept that? I don't know. Equality is fine, but the reality is women want to be loved by a man. Do they want their cake and eat it too? Well, yeah. I mean, and those biological realities matter and they're complementary, and that's fucking fine. That's the whole thing is like, this is why equality is fine, because there is a woman who can do some task that is particularly suited to men, right? Like you have physical tests, which are going to largely favor, on average, men. But there are a bunch of like weak-shouldered men, like me or whatever, who might not be up to the task of hauling that heavy thing super far. And there may be a chick like Gabby Garcia, look her up, by the way, she's a big bitch, who have much more masculine shoulders than I do. And she can probably haul the big heavy thing better than I can. Like, so when we get to the fringes, that's what we find out. But I'll still open more pickle jars than she ever will.